Hi there, everyone. My name is Scott Davenport, and I am happy to be back for another installment of Perfect Inspiration. A little about me: I'm a landscape and architecture photographer based in San Diego, and along with making photographs, I really enjoy sharing photo knowledge, processing tips, swapping stories, and learning about photography all along the way. You can find my work on www.scottdavenportphoto.com. I've got an active blog, and behind the scenes, I am revamping the storefront and adding a few new products in the next few weeks, including some On-One goodies, so be on the lookout for that. My site also links to all of my social media networks, and you can find me most active on Twitter and Google+. Today, I want to talk about getting inspiration by exploring new places, visiting a place you've never been, and how it can refresh and reopen your eyes to photography and the world around you. I spend most of my time in San Diego. It's a beautiful city. I love living here. I love being near the ocean. However, I've been up and down most of the San Diego coast multiple times, and there are times I have trouble finding a new subject or an interesting perspective to shoot. And it's not because there aren't interesting places or things around, it's because I can't see them. When you're familiar with a place, you sometimes get into that been there, done that syndrome. So, I took a photo trip to shake up my photographic routine. I visited the Pacific Northwest of the United States. It's my first time ever going there. And exploring new places is inspiring. I see differently. I'm less dismissive of subjects and vistas because they're unfamiliar. And then when I return home, I have fresh eyes and I start to see things closer to home that I didn't see before. Now, here's a few of the photos I took during the trip. I've processed some, I haven't gotten to others, and they range from architecture and abandoned buildings to forest and ocean landscapes. And I did a little urban and suburban exploring around the Portland area. By far, my favorite locations were the waterfalls, and those were my biggest source of inspiration on the trip, and the main draw for me to visit this area of the U.S. I really enjoyed Panther Falls in Washington. These falls aren't a new photo subject by any means. Plenty of great photographers have taken exquisite shots at these falls. However, it's a new place for me, and that was the point, putting myself somewhere new and getting inspired. So, let's take this photo and process it using the Perfect Photo Suite. Here in Aperture, I've made just two small adjustments. I dealt with some slight chromatic aberration that was present in this high contrast area of the photo, and I've done a slight adjustment on the white balance. And that's really it. Let's bring this into the suite and get some life into it. I start in layers, and there is some retouching to do. On the falls, there are a couple of bright leaves, and there's this one lone green leaf sticking out over here. And there's also a few distractions in the lower right corner to clean up. And then there's the tree line. The specks of sky peeking through the trees that aren't adding to the photo. So before I do the retouching, I like to make a duplicate layer and start retouching on the duplicate. So let's start with the simple things. I'll grab the Perfect Eraser and zoom in at 100% and start with these leaves here on the falls. And I'll use the bracket keys on the keyboard to size the brush, and with a click and click, those leaves are gone. And let's take care of that lone green leaf. This one might take a few brush strokes of the eraser. I'll start with the leaf. Not bad. And now the twig. And one more sweep to clean up. Okay, that's good. Onto the corner here. This mossy rock is not contributing to the photo. Let's take the brush a little bigger and paint over the rock. Very nice. And remove that little bit. Okay. And now for a few of these branches and twigs. There's this little guy here. Retouching is something that you can go a little overboard with. Last is this big branch here, definitely distracting and not adding to the picture. A little more cleanup. Good. All right, let's take a look so far. Here's before. All the distracting elements are present. And after. Much cleaner. Now, to deal with the sky and the tree line. A tip for landscapes. Small bits of sky peeking through the trees distract the eye. They're bright spots in an otherwise uniform set of colors. The sky above the trees is fine. I'm talking about these little bits that sneak through. I want to retouch these spots and just make the forest look more lush and thick. I find the clone tool works better than the eraser for areas like this that have a lot of texture and small details. And I like to use the clone tool at an opacity less than 100%, a lower strength. It can get a better blend, and I can always click multiple times to lay down a thicker sample of the area I'm cloning away. So let me start here. There's a pretty large bit of sky showing. I'll sample from this area with Option click on a Mac, and I think that's Control click on a PC. And I'll do that again with this tree as a guideline, and then grab a little more foliage and color from here. This is where the advantage of the lower opacity comes in. You can lay in different clone samples on top of one another and get a nice smooth blend. Now I'm going to repeat this process for the other patches of sky, and so I don't bore you to death with that, I'll be right back. I spent a few minutes and cloned away the rest of the bits of the sky. Now here's the before and the after. Now I'm ready to take this image into effects and stylize it. Before I do, I'll convert it to a smart layer by right-clicking on it and choosing Convert to Smart Layer. Now, a gear menu appears in the layer telling me that I have, in fact, got a smart layer. Now, smart layers are a part of the new Smart Photos feature of Suite 9, and a smart layer tracks all of the sliders, masks, filters, all the settings you might use in other modules, and saves it in such a way that they can be re-edited at a later time. It's a great new feature of Suite 9. Okay, I'll click Effects, and let's get going on the stylizing. Okay, here we are in Effects, and looking at the histogram, can see this photo is on the dark side. Okay, that sounded evil. This photo is a little dark. What I want to do is brighten up the photo some, add some color, and then add some detail. I'll start with a tone enhancer. It's a very powerful filter, and I can control a lot of aspects of the photo with just this one filter. The default auto contrast preset for this image just doesn't work. It's trying to spread the tones out too much, and this is a primarily darker scene, so I'm going to turn off that by clicking the auto button, and I'll adjust the sliders on my own. I'll start by increasing the brightness slider until things look good. Around 18 is fine. And add a little contrast and open up the shadows just a touch. Nice. Now some detail. This will be detail for the scene as a whole. I don't want to push too far and make things crunchy. But I do want some clarity too to amplify the edges, particularly on those fingers of water against the dark rocks. That's looking good. A last little tweak is the tone curve. The tone curve is incredibly powerful and often overlooked. It gives you an immense amount of control over the tones of your image. If you haven't taken the time to learn to use it, well, take the time and learn to use it. There's a set of tutorials in the training area on the ON1 website. Invest 15 minutes, you'll know everything there is to know about the filter. Now, I'm going to do a very simple and gentle S-curve and just bring down the shadows a touch and bring up the highlights a touch. Okay, I like the tones of the image. Now let's take care of the color. The Pacific Northwest is a very green place. For a guy from Southern California, it was green overload. I'm used to a desert palette, and sand on the beaches, and this place was green. So I'm going to add a new filter to the stack and choose the color enhancer. And there is a green enhancer preset that will work perfectly for this image. And yes, this is how I remember the scene. Very, very green. All right, tones are good, color's good. Now to punch up the waterfall, our main subject of this photo. I'll add an adjustment brush filter and choose the detail preset. Detail does what you think it does, adds detail wherever you paint in the effect. I'll add the detail all through the main body of the waterfall. Sweep my way around the falls here. These cascade flowing down the rocks are really starting to pop. For the water behind the trees, I'll be a little more careful with the brushing. I don't want too much detail in the trees, and they were moving quite a bit and softer in the image as a result. I also want to add some detail to the foreground, but not at the same strength. Let me change the mask view so we can see where detail has been added so far. So I want to add some detail in the foreground, but not all. So I'll lower the opacity of the brush and set it to erase some strokes. This is going to erase some but not all of the mask. And I'll sweep this around through the foreground, adding some detail in the water and these little cascades here. But the main body of the waterfall will still draw the attention the most. One other brush I will use is also new in Suite 9, and it's called the Blur Mask tool. This tool blurs or smudges the edges of the mask. It's not affecting the pixels of the image, just the mask. So I'll sweep this around the edges of the mask to get a nice blend, and it's really good for areas where the different opacities meet like this. Okay, here, it looks like I missed a spot at the base of the waterfall with the full strength. Let me add that in. And I'll turn off the red mask view. Good. So some detail in the foreground and stronger detail on the water itself. The next thing I'll do is add some sharpening. I'll add the sharpen filter to the stack and click the fix focus preset. And that looks pretty nice. It's not too over the top. You back off the opacity a little. I don't want the foliage to get too sharp and take attention away from the waterfall. Actually, I think I want to dampen the sharpening at the edges more. Let me get the masking bug, and I'll choose the edges shape. This masks away the sharpening from the edges. I'll position and shape the bug so the full sharpening is on the waterfall, and we'll feather it so it gradually lessens as we go toward the edges. And you can see here the before and the after. With the sharpening in the bug, the waterfall pops a little more, but the surrounding scene just slightly sharpens. The final touch is a vignette. What landscape would be complete without a vignette? So I'll add that to the filter stack. And the way I like to work with the vignette tool is take the brightness and the feather all the way down, drag them all the way to the left. This makes it very easy to see where the vignette's being applied. Then adjust the roundness and the size, and for this photo I only want the corners to be touched by the vignette. Once I have the size and the shape, I'll bring the feather all the way back up to 100%, and then adjust the brightness to suit my taste for this photo. I don't want to lose too much of those corners to darkness, so I'll bring that up, and then we're done. We'll click Apply and send this back to Layers. So back in Layers, I have the Smart Layer, the set of changes, that perfect effect tucked beneath it. And more importantly, I have a photo I'm really happy with. Here's the before image that patches the sky and the tree line and the other distractions. And the after image, stylized to bring in brightness, detail, and color to the scene. Now, I hope this was informational, entertaining, and inspiring for you and your photography. My name is Scott Davenport, and thank you again for watching Perfect Inspiration.